This podcast contains spoilers, so listen at your own risk or call back after you've watched the movie.
You know who you call. Leave a message. Maybe they'll call you back. Then again, maybe they won't.
We're having ourselves quite a little game of phone tag here.
Ring, ring, ring. I usually get this guy's answering machine.
I'll call you right back.
If you're there, please pick up the phone. I really want to talk to you.
I check my fucking messages every day when I come home from work. My answering machine, zero. I got a blinking light.
All I have to do is pick up this phone right here, inform the cinema, and your plan's kaput.
No, I ain't got no phone. I had to pull, because people calling all the time, and who needs the aggravation, right? Interruptions.
Hey man, it's Monday morning, starting work shortly. Feeling a little the worse for wear, but I wanted to send you a voice note because I got a moment right now, and I wanted to send you my thoughts on this film before they went from my mind. So it's early-ish November right now, and then later this month you will be embarking on Criterion Week, which is your new tradition of watching a Criterion collection film every day for a week, which I think is a fantastic idea. And definitely when I look at the Criterion collection and I hear people talking about it, it's just so laden with interesting films that you feel a pretty high level of confidence are going to be good because they've sort of ended up there in the first place, or at the very least worth watching and noteworthy, but also just absolutely laden with blind spots for me and for you, I think. So I think it's a great idea and I wanted to get involved, but I felt that I probably wouldn't have the stamina or the free time really to do the one a day that you're doing, especially knowing that Criterion films are not necessarily the shortest films in the world. So I thought I'd see how many of them I could get in over the course of the month, getting a little bit of a head start, and maybe I can end up having watched all of your 7 movies, just not across 7 days. So the first one on your list, I believe, is this film, Tampopo, 1985 film. Now, I'm going to attempt to pronounce some of the names involved, but I'm sure they're going to be very badly pronounced. So directed by Juzo Itami. I am no expert on Japanese cinema at all, but there are certain directors that have kind of achieved a level of notoriety in the West to the point where I know their name. And this guy is not one of them. Now, I have heard this movie mentioned a lot, so the name of the movie is quite familiar to me. I think it's mainly been mentioned, at least to my ears, in the context of films about food, which is, now that I've seen the film, incredibly fitting. But I guess once you hear about a film enough times, it just sort of gets logged into your brain. Even if you don't actually know what it's about, or you don't really know when it's from, or you have any context on it, you just have it logged somewhere in the back of your mind as good movie. You're like, if someone was to just say Tampopo to me a week ago, I'd be like, yeah, that's one of the millions of good movies that are out there that I've heard in the right places from the right people, the right sources, as being a really good movie, like well worth checking out, but I don't know anything more than that about it. And I obviously wasn't involved in selecting the films for your Criterion Week. I haven't sat down and researched Tampopo. I've just been given a list by you of like, these are the 7 movies I'm doing, and I'm watching them on that basis alone. So it's a nice and somewhat rare opportunity to just sit down and watch a film with absolutely no clue whatsoever when it's from. It could be from the 60s, it could be black and white, it could be color, it could be a crime movie, it could be anything. I mean, the word Tampopo doesn't evoke anything. It's not like, even if it had been translated into English, even if they had, I think it's sunflower is what Tampopo means, even if they had called the film in the West Sunflower, that still wouldn't really clue you into anything at all. So yeah, I sat down, watched this film completely without any context. And well, the first thing that's revealed to you, so we watched High and Low by Kurosawa about 2 months ago, give or take. And that is a film like with many tremendous, well, I would say exclusively tremendous performances. But one of the brilliant performances in it is, and again, here comes my pronunciation, but Tsutomu Yamazaki. That is the, well, that I won't even say who he is in High and Low, but he's a small character. He has a small role, but very important role. And he is sensational in that film. And it's one of these things where you see him, and it's such a small role, and it's such a specific character that even though you're blown away by him, you don't necessarily know what kind of range he has or what else he'd be able to do. So he's in this movie. He's an actor that my only reference point for him is have seen him in one film very recently, and then subsequent to watching High and Low, I've checked him out on IMDb and noticed that he's in a bunch of other significant Japanese films. But I've only seen him once before. But also the film features Koji Yakusho, who was in Cure and Pulse, and more recently in Perfect Days, which we both really liked, and also has just popped up here and there. And then Ken Watanabe, who I think was the first Japanese actor that really got famous in American movies with like The Last Samurai and various Chris Nolan movies and stuff. So for an old Japanese movie, and again, I'm not a big expert on Japanese film, it's immediately comforting to go, oh, there's 3 actors that I care about, quite high billing in this film. So I have that. I mean, Koji you get from the opening scene. In fact, it's almost like a precursor to the movie scene. I thought they could clip that out and they could just play that in cinemas as a like shut the fuck up and watch the movie type of short message. But and then he reoccurs back throughout the film in very interesting ways. But the guy from High and Low, which again, referring back to my screen here, because there's no way I've got these names hardwired into my head. Tsutomu, well, I'll call him Goro from now on, actually. That's going to be easier for me. Goro is a revelation because, like I said, I've seen him once in a very specific and quite small part in a movie. And this is one of the most nuanced characters that I've seen in a while on screen. It's brilliant. So let me sort of try and focus what I'm trying to express here about this movie. I think it's an excellent movie. I think it's a brilliant movie. I think it's a treasure. I think it's easily a film that I could see someone watching on an annual basis, or perhaps even more frequently than that, because it's cozy. It's a celebration of life. It's obviously a celebration of food and cooking. So watching this, I realized how valid a filmmaking concept it is to make a film that is about a passion, a specific passion, in this case, cooking and food, I'll say. And it made me actually want to identify, okay, so this is the premier film across all of film history, I would say, about food and cooking. There's other ones like Chocolat and stuff like that, but I think this sort of takes the cake, no pun intended. Like this is the best film, unless I'm forgetting something. I feel like this is the best film that is about food and cooking. And there's lots of films, as I said, there's loads of films that are about chefs and all this kind of stuff. But this is just so wholeheartedly focused on food and cooking. And it made me think, okay, there needs to be a movie like this about every passion. And I was trying to think, okay, what's the one about clothes? A Phantom Thread came to mind. I don't know if it's quite in the same realm as this, but there almost needs to be like a film like this about carpentry, a film like this about painting and everything, you know, all the different kind of passions that one can have. So, but it is not, obviously it's not just about food and cooking. It's also about joie de vivre. It's about inspiration. It's about like being engaged with and gratified by life. And I definitely wouldn't say that food and cooking is just a mere stand-in for passion in general, or like this is definitely a film about the sort of sensorial joy and engagement with the gift of life, but it is also very much about food. So it's a film that's very uplifting because we've all sort of had that experience of maybe being sort of wandering through life a bit apathetically and a bit kind of like going through the motions, sort of like the main actress in this movie is at the beginning of the film, where her life isn't great, her son's life isn't great, her business isn't great. It's all a bit kind of wallowing. And then over the course of the film, with the help of this guy Goro, she finds her appetite for life. So I guess you could hate food and you could hate cooking. I mean, I don't know who hates food, but you could hate food and cooking. And this film has enough just about the human condition there, but also, like I said, it is very much about food and cooking. So it kind of does both. Now, for my part, I'm vegan, so this film is not like I'm watching this film and going, I want to eat the stuff in this movie. I mean, there's obviously occasional things that are like the actual making of noodles and stuff that I have that relationship with. But I think most people watching this film, it's going to be an added layer that I don't even have of like, oh my God, I really want to eat this stuff. There's also, this film has animal cruelty in it, which is always very difficult for me to watch. There's a lot of great movies, like some of my favorite films, like Wake in Fright, Apocalypse Now, Friday the 13th, that feature this, and it's very difficult for me to watch. But even watching this film, not specifically wanting to eat the dishes that are being made, which again, I'd say I'm in a small minority of people who are kind of watching the film on that wavelength, I still get so much from it because food and cooking is possibly my primary passion in life. I mean, it would definitely be movies, music, and food and cooking. Those would be the sort of three totems of my life. And after watching this, I immediately went into a big cooking frenzy, got out the cookbooks, made some like niche stuff. And just that, I don't know if I've ever seen a film, and maybe this is just fresh in my mind, maybe I'm forgetting stuff, my memory's terrible, but I don't think I've ever seen a film that captures as well this pursuit of getting things right, this detail orientated, I would use the word perfectionism, but I think perfectionism is almost like a dirty word, where like it's what they're trying to do is do things to an incredibly high standard. This is not a obsessive, it's not like Amadeus or something, where it's like someone driving themselves mad and being a perfectionist just for the sake of it. This is all about making good food, enjoying the food, presenting the food. They're actually not even trying to make food for themselves. They're trying to add something of value to the world, and not in a big lofty way either. It's a humble little ramen house, and all of the places that they go to, I mean, some places they go to and they think they're, or at least Goro is like, this place is shit, but there's places that they go to which they think are incredible, and it's not a Michelin star restaurant where you have to be like, you know, wearing like a tuxedo or something to go to. It's like, for example, the scene where she dodgily pays 30,000 yen to go back to the back of this like clothes shop or carpet shop or something and look through a crack and see what this guy's up to. Like, it's showing that master craftsmanship exists in everywhere in life and can exist everywhere in life, and doing things right and doing things conscientiously is something that is everyone has access to that. Everyone has the opportunity to execute on that. And I'm talking, everything I've said so far is like specifically about the main plot of the film, because peppered into the film, we also get these little vignettes, these little short asides. The film reminded me of Amelie a lot. I think Amelie is also a film about how much wonder is in the world, in just like the average, everyday, random neighborhood. I mean, Amelie is set in one of the most beautiful neighborhoods in the world, but still, it's like, you can, you know, isn't it fucking incredible that cups of tea exist? Like, isn't it fucking incredible that like nice curtains exist? Like, that's life-changing stuff, and very few films focus on that, because they're obviously focused on like bigger, more heightened things. But seeing the way this film weaves together this central story, but then also this it accounts for the fact that there is a whole world, or a whole city at least, driven by sensory pleasures, and obviously food is the big one that comes through this, but they show sex, they show death, they show love, they show like hustling, business. Like, people are doing what they're doing, and it's again usually shown at least somewhat through the prism of food, but it all gives you this amazing tapestry of the human condition. It's also obviously a snapshot of mid-80s Japan, or Tokyo. I presume it's set in Tokyo because it was a big city, but I don't know that for a fact. But we watched Audition a few weeks ago, and that was late 90s, almost like turn of the millennium Japan. And we also commented then that it's interesting to sort of see a snapshot of a time in a country and culture that's so far away, so remote from us. The films are nothing like one another, but they are both interesting examinations of like the physical sensations of the flesh, and the how volatile, maybe in a good way, maybe in a bad way, it is letting love and passion back into your life after years of it being dormant. This lady who's the main character, and she's brilliant. I hadn't seen her before, but she's fantastic. We have this kind of will they won't they burgeoning love between her and Goro, and at the end of the film he drives off. Like, everyone leaves. She's good. She's been set up. She's off to the races now. And certainly I was expecting him to stay, but that's not where he feels he belongs. He feels he belongs behind the wheel of the truck that we see him in essentially the opening scene of the movie, sort of post the intro thing. And, you know, call me sentimental, I was a bit disappointed by that. It's maybe it's a more provocative ending, because it makes you think about, oh, this is a real character that's grappling with who he is, and this is where he feels is his place, and he doesn't feel that being with her is his place. But you know, the old like Richard Curtis fan in me is like expecting the truck to turn around and drive back home. Actually, then instead of that, we get the end credit shot of the little baby breastfeeding, getting its first initial intro into the wonder of food and nourishment, and that's an absolutely incredible end credit sequence, and it's perfect for this film. But yeah, really liked the movie. I loved all of the little shorts, like the woman going around the supermarket feeling up all the food. The character of the gangster guy is interesting. There's an interesting thing where there's that scene which, I mean, unless I'm reading the symbolism wrong, very much seems to be a sort of symbolic taking a child's virginity scene, where he meets this girl on the beach who's harvesting mussels or oysters, and she opens up an oyster for him, and we get the spot of blood in it, and this sort of scene that's like a sexual coming of age scene for her. And then at the end of the film, we see him being killed. And where is he being killed? In a playground. And I mean, I could be just reading into that. I'm not sort of like trying to like stake my claim like this is about this. There's stuff in this film that is just supposed to affect you. It's not an ambiguous arty film, but it's also like, it's very much, here's food, life, sex, joy, all this stuff, like you know what to do with this, rather than everything completely spelled out. But that was an interesting arc. And obviously we get the sex scene with him and his girlfriend in the hotel room, which has got to be the most like well thought out and like perfectly executed sex scene about food, but actually sex scene in general, like it's got to be up there in terms of the most iconic ones. But then we get like little ones that last for a couple of minutes, like the old con man who's pretending he's doing his like professor routine, and when the policeman like captures him, he's sort of looking at it like, well, I'm really old, I'm about to be taken to prison, I'll definitely die in prison, I'm sat here with this incredible food, let me have a few more bites, kind of thing. And yeah, I don't know, it's just like, I think if I watched the movie, like pausing it every time there was like a gem like that, just like a great little bite-sized nugget in this film, no pun intended again, I'd probably be sending you like a voice note that was like the length of the entire film. So yeah, I don't know anything about this director, and I will probably dive into reading about the film now, but it's a great cozy movie. I'm sure there's other stuff that came to mind that I could say, but oh yeah, the other film that came to mind a lot actually while I was watching it was The Fisher King. We actually have a sort of hobo, almost Lost Boys type of group in this, which is the guys that Goro is friends with. And when you see Goro with them, that's the only time you see Goro absolutely like completely what's the word, uninhibited. He's just joyous and smiling. He's not in any way grumpy, he's not in any way kind of stoic. He's just so comfortable in his element with his family. He's loving it. And those guys are presented really well. The scene where one of them takes the little boy down into the back of the kitchen at night and stealthily makes this rice omelette, like it's brilliant. But Fisher King is also a film that turns urban life into magical realism. We get the scene where Goro is fighting the flat cap guy, the contractor, and it's like we see from a big panning shot them fighting down in the grass, but then just like huge urban infrastructure over their heads. And the way this film is both set in a fantasy world, also set in a really real familiar urban world is very Fisher King. Fisher King obviously came out after this film, and I bet you anything that I've seen and loved a lot of films over the years that draw inspiration from Tampopo. So yeah, great find, great. I think you've done it so far, 1 for 1 at least on this Criterion week scheduling for my part. So yeah, looking forward to the next one.
Hey man, just now currently going for a walk in the park. It's not as enjoyable as it normally is during warmer months. In fact, it's a horrible day. Tá lá flock, as we say in Ireland. And yeah, sometimes I just like walking and talking. Great to hear your thoughts on Tampopo. I agree with a lot of what you said. Yeah, so with this Criterion week, it's funny, there's a YouTube show that I know you mention you watch sometimes called the Criterion Closet, when they have various actors and directors and sometimes different personalities on, and they just pick out their favorite movies or movies they haven't seen, and they just put them in their tote bag, and then they have to go on their merry way. And I used to watch that, and they used to be flinging out film recommendations at a level that I couldn't possibly remember, and I just kept on adding them to my watch list again and again, and then just seeking out these movies. And at a certain point, there was so many added to my watch list and part of my collection that I thought, God, at this point now it's overwhelming. I'm getting so many recommendations, but at the same time, with these type of movies and the Criterion collection and the people that talk about the movies, they don't come across as stuffy, they don't come across as snobby, they don't come across as what I don't like in terms of the negative art house side of film, or that you find in any artistic profession. So, but at the same time, I thought, God, it's going to be really hard to tackle these movies because of just the label alone. It's in the Criterion collection. It just comes with such weight. So I didn't really want the weight of every time picking a movie, realize, no, this is from the Criterion. This is from the Criterion collection. You need to pick this under the right conditions and the right circumstances. And then I thought, okay, well, what if I just do a few weeks a year? 4 is the plan, and just pick 7 movies that I heard from this YouTube channel and just bang them out. Then there's no real weight to them. Then it's just I'm watching 7 movies from that, and that's what I'm doing that week. And it kind of took away the level of weight as a film watcher that I would normally have of, right, I need to do this film justice, be in the right frame of mind to get the most out of it. With this, no, it's just, as Guru says from Gangstar, it's ex-girl to the next girl, and that was my approach to watching these films. So I'm glad you had a great time with Tampopo. You can thank Andrew Garfield for it, actually, because he was saying that his dad used to put on the movie all the time and want to watch Tampopo, and they never really appreciated it until him and his brother, I think it was, until about 10-15 years ago, where they finally became fans of Tampopo and now love it and really appreciate that it was introduced to him. And it was really nice. Andrew Garfield's such an oddball, and he comes across as himself, so just hearing him have that experience with it, both at a young age and a older age where he can appreciate it, and tying it into a family memory with his dad, it was great. And didn't really know much about the movie either going into it. I knew it was revolving around food in some way, but yeah, then I decided to watch it with my partner, who is a massive foodie, and she's an amazing cook. So also the other thing is, coming into this movie, I had a very, very stressful week. Like, a really getting churned out by the machine of capitalism and London and trying to survive, as you well know. And getting this movie on a Friday night off the back of a week like that was almost like being presented with a warm, cozy meal on my TV screen. It was just the comfort food that you need. I remember when I went on holidays to Madeira years ago, stopped off at a restaurant with a tour guide, and we were wondering, what's the food like in this place? And he said, it's like mom's kitchen. It's like mom's cooking. And this movie is like the mom's cooking of film, of a film experience, providing you had a good mother, I suppose. But yeah, had a very good time with this movie. It's so wholesome. And the other thing, which is a big thing, which you didn't mention, I don't know if you didn't feel that, but it's the first thing that I'll talk about, because it's pretty much a lot of the other voice note I'm going to send you is just saying, yeah, I agree with all that. So this movie plays like a Western in many ways. And I think even how the movie is bookended makes a lot of sense when you look at it under a Western lens. For instance, we start with we don't start with this chronologically, because we start with that scene, like you said, with the gangster, almost like a pre-cinema warning, don't fucking talk. I know when I have a cinema screening from now on, I'm gonna make a cut of that scene and put it up. But yeah, let's just talk about the opening scene from a Western point of view, where we get this guy, Goro, which I hadn't recognized from that movie Highest to Lowest. I can't remember which one it's called now. It's forever ingrained after that debacle of the remake. I didn't recognize it was him, but now that I know exactly who you're talking about in that movie, yeah, he's brilliant. And I often say, if you saw Daniel Day-Lewis in something like The Last of the Mohicans, you think, oh yeah, he's okay. But then when you combine that with a performance like Daniel Plainview, you're thinking, whoa, like, he was so good at playing okay that I thought he was just an okay actor. And maybe if you just see Goro in this, you might think, oh, he's really good at playing a certain type of character. But then you compare it to High to Low, and you just think, God, he's doing so much here, isn't he? But anyway, so he and his co-worker, played by Ken Watanabe, who's the only actor that I actually did recognize at the time after a few minutes, and they arrive into town the same way a gunslinger would on horseback. They arrive at the town, they go into an inn, everything's not particularly right, is there? Something needs to be fixed, almost. We're here, and again, by the end of the movie, the gunslinger has fulfilled his task, and now he wanders on, leaving town, having sorted out that situation again. And that's the bookend of that movie, based on Western iconography, that makes a little bit more sense from that point of view. And the other thing is, I mean, a lot of the stylistic choices at times, and there is a lot of stylistic choices that vary from genre to genre, but a lot of the stylistic choices of this very much does resemble a spaghetti Western. In fact, I read afterwards it's considered a noodle Western, which says it all. Yeah, this is very, on one level, from a genre point of view, almost like the Magnificent Seven, except built around food. So that's a whole other element to it, where you have the guys from the rival ramen shop coming into town, coming into the saloon, except they're ramen shops in this, and we get this music that's very resemblant of Westerns, and it's about tasting ramen. And then it's how do you fix the village? How do you protect the village? Well, you go get the best gunslingers in the town, and you get the sensei, the old gunslinger, who knows about ramen. So this is a food Western as well. It's working on another level. And then you get these various people with various abilities to come together and protect the town. And in this, you got various people come together to make the broth, to make the noodles, all these different elements to make this ramen, to make this ultimate ramen, and ultimately change the fortunes of the main character, Tampopo. So I'm already in heaven from that point of view. I thought it was a great use of a genre that I really love to tell the story at times. Now, from the very first moment of this movie is constantly changing around with form and scenes and vignettes. On top of that, you really don't know what you're going to get from scene to scene in this movie. It constantly keeps you on its toes. And at the heart is the main story, of course, of, you know, we get it in, what's that movie with Jake Gyllenhaal? Not Rocket Boy, but he literally builds the rocket. October Sky, where a village gathers around together to help and put aside their differences and put aside their egos, put aside their personalities in a sense of unity. And I know you love those movies, and It's a Wonderful Life is like that. And this has shades of that without the bleakness of It's a Wonderful Life, but it is a very get the gang together to help someone and build relationships and put aside differences. So that's the main story. But on the other hand, constantly we're being interrupted and we're being treated to different vignettes. And obviously the opening scene sets that up anyway. So you get this opening scene of the man in the white suit, who I didn't realize was the guy from Perfect Days. I won't try and produce any pronunciation of Japanese names because I'm not at my laptop. But yeah, he's talking to the audience almost like Ferris Bueller. And then later on we get the guys in the van, and then we're treated to a scene from the book that the Ken Watanabe character is reading. So we're constantly getting different types of creation, different types of imagination of the mind, let alone the imagination of what you can come up with food. And it's funny, this movie is so unique and it's so hard to pin down the rhythm of anything you're going to get at any given scene. And I often wonder, like, was there lots of movies trying to do things like this in terms of the rhythm of the scenes on a more common level at the time, and then all those aren't good and fall by the wayside, and then what's left is the perfect version of that? Like, for instance, I'm a big fan of 90s hip-hop, but obviously I've been introduced to the best of 90s hip-hop, and then I see these people like A Tribe Called Quest, I see these people like Gangstar, I see these people like Pete Rock and CL Smooth, and I'm thinking, wow, these bands are just so unique and so brilliant. And then I listen to mediocre and okay hip-hop from those times, and I'm thinking, okay, no, everyone was doing that sound, everybody was doing that rhyming style, but they're just not that good at it. So I often wonder with movies like this that give these vignettes, especially the vignettes and moments of comedy, was that a common type of thing at the time? And this is just so brilliant at it that it just seems like it's so unique now that I'm not embedded in 80s movies. Because I know there's stuff like Top Secret, stuff like Airplane, and comedies, which this is at its core, were very creative in the way they would jump around and have these little scenes at the time. I mean, there's something like the food scene in this movie that is definitely like something out of Loaded Weapon in its isolation, but when you tie it in thematically to the love of food in this movie, then it takes on an entirely different meaning, and it just works on so many different levels. I mean, this movie's got so many different memorable things that will just stay with you and stay with me on a scene by scene basis. Even the scenes, like we get this one scene where I can't remember the actual movements of the scene, but we get one guy, he comes home, his wife is dead, or basically dead. The doctors are around, and he says, "Oh, I know," and he gets her to cook dinner, and she's cooking dinner while basically dead. And then she manages to cook this amazing meal, and then she literally dies at that moment, and they're eating their food while crying. This is all very Elmore territory in one way in 80s comedies, but it's just so pitch perfect around the team, and it's done so well, and it's done so humorously. The jokes work that it just feels like it's not just the joke that makes you laugh. It feels like there's so much more going on in those scenes that even if you didn't find funny what was going on, it would just be a marvel. And it's not entirely funny either. It's fucking crazy, and it demonstrates the points how people are so passionate about food. And we also get this scene just in a more less stakes way where they're slurping on the noodles with the sound effect. Again, that's something, these are all things you'll find in these type of comedies. But anyway, we get this scene where the guy runs home because his wife is dying. I think that's what happened. And then after that, it cuts to another vignette unrelated to the story where this old woman goes into the store and she starts messing up all this food, and we get so much screwball energy from these vignettes as well. And it does just a good enough job of not making you miss the lack of focus on the main story, and it's just so unexpected what happens that you're almost not exasperated, but you're almost flabbergasted about anything you're witnessing. And the other thing for a comedy, and I don't mean just for a comedy like that, this is all it is, but it is beautifully shot and it's beautifully staged. Like, there's amazing shots in this that don't call attention to themselves, like when the guy is running and the train's running at the same time, and the two guys have a punch out and the silhouette are fighting, and then they look up at we get this POV of the sky and some of the grass. All these are amazing shots, but they're just not, it's almost like a low-key Paul Thomas Anderson camera work going on at times. Yeah, so very impressed with this movie. And what you mentioned as well regarding the I don't know what word you use, but the dedication to food without the obsessiveness. You mentioned Amadeus. Speaking as an outsider of Japanese culture, and all the culture I've consumed probably is from movies, but one thing I really appreciate, whether it's true or not, was giving me the impression that they take a lot of care in being good at what they are doing, whether that is something as high stakes as making movies or whatever. It's just they seem to take pride in doing the best that they do, whatever they do. Like Jiro Dreams of Sushi is a documentary about this, where he's perfecting making sushi. And in this, of course, it's the ramen, and just how they describe the ramen and the making, what to do, the chopsticks, the broth, what to put in, and why you're doing what you're doing. It's almost like food porn. And in fact, we do actually literally get some food porn in that scene later. So it does give you such a visceral experience of everything that goes on. But yeah, how Japanese culture has been presented to me in this type of way is very fucking admirable, and it's something that makes me want to just get better at stuff that I enjoy. It's kind of like someone was describing, I think it was Kurosawa actually. I sent you a clip on Instagram, maybe I didn't, but he was saying how you get better at writing every day, and he made the analogy when someone is hiking a mountain or climbing a mountain, they never tell you look at the peak. You just look and what you're doing in that moment. And I feel like what we get in this type of attitude towards work and your passion is just improving and finding mindfulness in what you're doing all the time, and finding contentness in what you're doing, and trying to improve it, and not in our school used to have a motto, be the best you can be bullshit, but they mean it they almost believe it intertwined with their passion. So yeah, a lot to like about this movie. And yeah, I think the main character as well, I think her name is Tampopo, isn't it? Which my subtitles thankfully translated means dandelion. I think she's very good as well, and there's so many great shots of her face radiating and just how the director frames her, and we just get so much joy from her feeling joy, and you almost want to protect her, and when she smiles you're just so happy for her. That's hard to do. And again, the director, I think, was either married to her or dating her at the time, and that's interesting with the Korean director. What was that movie that we watched the other day? Oh God, wish I knew, but it's the very small scale movies that guy does. Oh God, I can't remember. Something, I won't remember the name of it, but how he frames the lead actress, and he's actually in a relationship with her as well. So there are times where this thing transcends the movie, where if someone's looking at the person and they love them, and the actress is actually looking at the camera at times in this movie and is aware that the person who's watching them loves them, it does bring something out that is almost beyond acting. I'll have to check that other movie's name now and send you a voice note with the name, because it's annoying me. The Novelist film, that's the one. And yeah, the other fun thing is, it's interesting what you're saying about the guy literally deflowering her in a food sense. And it's interesting what you're saying about he gets killed on the playground as well. I don't think that is connected, but certainly the first part you say is definitely right on the nose. The thing about the playground is it's open for debate. I feel like at times that whole vignette sequences is parroting another movie, but I just don't know what they're parroting. But I could be wrong. And again, in true fashion, this movie ends at the end scene of a baby sucking the mother's tit in the end credits. Only this movie could just end with that. And yeah, you mentioned about your first introduction to food. It ends on that note, but it also ends on a note of food and love being interconnected, because who's the food coming from? It's coming from the mother in that sequence. What you're loving the food, and it's not, it almost can't be separated at this type of passion and this type of love for food, quite simply, of that type of nurturing, that type of care, that type of maternalisticness as well. You're just getting it from the very beginning. So yeah, I think it's a good movie. We'll see what comes up next. I think it's Picnic at Hanging Rock today, and yeah, we'll see how it goes. There's going to be no rhyme or rhythm to these movies, other than the fact that I've picked them not to be very long.
Hey man, it's about 6:30 in the morning here. Been up for about an hour. I'm just cooking a giant batch of hummus. It takes so long to boil the chickpeas that just getting the jump on it before Sunday really sets in. My daughter's on the couch watching a Christmas movie, and no one else is up. So yeah, really great to hear your thoughts on Tampopo. I was pretty sure you were going to love it, but there's this weird thing that some people have, and it's often hard to predict who will have this response. But I've noticed it with the film Amelie a lot, but it's also just any film that's kind of like life affirming or making a statement about like, isn't the world an amazing, magical place? Some people, that kind of just butts up against their cynicism in a awkward way, and they really dislike films like that. They're like, don't be telling me to be happy and think the world is amazing kind of response. And I think Tampopo could definitely fall victim to that, but you seem to have had the same response that I did, where we just loved it. And you mentioned Andrew Garfield used to watch it growing up, maybe didn't appreciate it until adulthood, but it was a kind of staple of his household. And I feel like I could watch Tampopo again now. I'd love to see myself kind of returning to it over the years, because I think all of these little bits, all these little characters, I mean, there's so many characters in the movie if you include people who are only in it for one scene, and they all have their own value and sweetness and sort of statement on life, and obviously they all make some sort of statement on one's relationship with food. Yeah, I think all of those moments would just benefit from familiarity. Great comparison to Westerns. I mean, it almost sounds more than a comparison. It's like you're saying it is a Western, which I'm totally here for that. I didn't pick up on that. Obviously, you're a huge Western fan, and I'm not as big of a Western fan. So that wasn't something that was in my head. I mean, he is sort of wearing a cowboy hat, kind of, and I picked up on that, but I picked up on it more as like, he's a maverick. He's a larger than life character. But now that you kind of walk me through it, you know, the riders coming in with the cowboy hat at the beginning, all the scenes of like different gangs kind of walking into saloons for fights, getting the gang together, making this woman be able to fend for herself, and then at the end riding off into the horizon. It's 100% tracks. Like, it is can definitely be considered a Western. I think if Star Wars can be considered a Western, then this can certainly be considered a Western. So yeah, really good comparison. And just like, I guess, the fact that I could watch this movie, love it, get so much out of it, and miss an entire layer that you had with it speaks to what a special, rich film it is. And you also mentioned the 80s comedy stuff. So that's really interesting. So I like the movies that you're referencing there, the like Top Secret and stuff. I love that film. I love certain 80s movies. Let's say the first Naked Gun. So like, we're talking spoofs, but there's the occasional other one. I'm talking comedies now. Not comedies like Breakfast Club, but like out and out, like joke-a-thon comedies, which are, like you said, really screwball, really heightened, really ridiculous. Although I like some of them and I find some of them funny, I think the chances are I'm not going to find it funny. Like, I recently tried to watch Kentucky Fried Movie, which is also by the Zaz guys or whatever they're called, and it really wasn't doing it for me. And I think you made a great point about, I can't remember how you put it, but basically these moments, like for example, the scene where the guy, his wife is dying, he rushes home, he's like, how can I keep her alive? Oh, I'll get her to cook. makes her cook. She's literally dying as she's cooking. She dies then as soon as she's put the food on the table, and they keep eating, and he's like, eat up, it's your mother's last meal that she ever cooked in her life. And that, I can see that in a Zaz type movie, in an 80s, 70s or 80s American comedy movie. I can see myself getting nothing from it. And I can see myself watching a movie like that and just it being a real struggle. There's a few things, because it's very, very similar DNA. I think trying to work out why it works for me so well here, and why that level of zaniness could not work for me elsewhere. And I could also make this statement about Dumb and Dumber, like, why does that work for me so well, but that level of zaniness and ridiculousness can just be like so like tiring for me in another film. I think it's the pathos underneath it, of course. Like it's a very emotionally driven scene. This is a scene about a father who's like, you know, he's a salary man, he's off in the office, he's probably not a homesteader, he's not cooking, he's not really doing any of that like maternal stuff. I mean, maybe I'm projecting a bit here, but that's sort of my read on it. And this is his it's presumably soulmate, center of his life, is dying, leaving this whole family to fend for itself, and she's not yet dead, so he's trying to experience being with her, but she's like absolutely gone, and they're about to embark into a whole new, really challenging journey. So that all that stuff I just said is like present in your mind while you're watching the zaniness and while you're watching the comedy. And then B, the film has kind of won you over with drama and characters and stuff, because it's a bit wacky right from the beginning. I mean, even before the beginning, I would say with the cinema scene, I was like, what are we doing here? Is this going to be thin? Is this going to be light? But like, they quickly get you caring about character, about people's life situations, about this mother, like single mother, child being bullied. Like there's just so much character and drama weight that they get you in on. I think Dumb and Dumber does this as well, that you're very anchored. So when you watch it, you're not just like, this is all flimsy nothingness, and unless I find it funny as if I'm watching like a sketch comedy show or something, then like it can own like it. The jokes in let's say Kentucky Fried Movie, which I attempted recently, you have to find the jokes hilarious. You have to be laughing out loud every time they do a joke. If they do a joke and you just kind of like give half a smile, that's not enough, because there's nothing else going on in the movie in terms of dramatic weight. And so, yeah, I think this film, I didn't even really notice the similarity it had to for other films that I wouldn't like at all until you sort of draw that comparison to 80s comedy. But it's absolutely there. It's very similar, but it just works for me so much better because of the kind of deeper philosophical and emotional anchor points of the film. And then just to speak to this kind of Japanese perfectionism thing. So I think when you said like when it's tied to a passion, that it's really inspiring, it kind of makes you want to perfect something that you're passionate about. And that kind of infectious element is 100% here in the movie. And I agree. I'm watching this as an Irish guy. I'm watching it in the West. I'm watching it completely removed from the pressures of Japanese society to be perfect. But I've spent a few months in Japan and obviously been kind of fascinated by the country for decades. And I think the problem with this perfectionism thing is it's not just you get really passionate about something. Like we can so totally relate to like getting really passionate about ramen and wanting to just bring it to like the highest possible standard to make a better life for yourself. That's like a very Western idea and notion or whatever, impulse. But in Japan, at least my reading of it, you know, obviously take this with a pinch of salt, but like, who cares what I think ultimately? But my interpretation of it is that sort of necessity for perfectionism goes so far beyond things that you're passionate about. I mean, it's completely irrelevant whether you're passionate about it. Whatever you're doing has to be perfect all the time. And also, perfectionism usually means adherent to a existing standard, an existing formula that is like, this is the best way to do everything. So it's quite oppressive and claustrophobic in reality. So this is almost like the movie that, like, quite a dark, sinister trend within Japan results in so much amazing, great stuff. That's why, like, Japanese craftsmanship is the best. Everything Japan does is like better than any other country could have done it, kind of thing. But and then when you see a film like this, where the thing that they're trying to do is something that they're genuinely passionate about, and it's kind of entrepreneurial because she's like she's her own boss. She's like building her own world. That is really clean in terms of, like, there's it doesn't, I don't know, it feels very aspirational, but I think it's like when you look at something like Jiro Dreams of Sushi, or any Japanese movie that's about that kind of, like, I'm going to do something well, I'm going to do my thing well, and I want to do it. It is very inspiring, but I think it's a symptom of a culture that I mean, obviously leads to, like, enormously high suicide and depression and all sorts of mental health issues. So no, that's not in this movie. So we can watch this as, like, when I'm watching this, because I'm, like I said, I'm like obsessed with cooking. Not only obsessed with cooking, but I'm a very nerdy, kind of obsessive person. So if I get into making something, like, for example, I said today I'm making hummus, like, that's not just like casually look up a hummus recipe, make it. That's like years and years of investigation and research, and like finding tweaks and like optimizing it. And like I've like approached that, and it's like one of the simplest dishes in the entire world, thousands of years old probably, and there's not much to it, but still I've taken that, I've spent untold hours researching and studying hummus and like how to kind of take that to its optimum possible form. And I've done that with many things, some of them culinary, some of them just like, you know, other creative pursuits. So for me, watching a film like Tampopo is like super relatable, and I think I can see this as like a healthy film and watch it kind of, or like whatever inspires in me, whatever behavior practices or whatever inspires in me are going to be healthy. And like I said, not like that Amadeus thing where like you drive yourself mad trying to get something right. So yeah, I guess that's just one part of when I'm watching a film that is about Japanese perfectionism. I also think about like, yeah, well, okay, but this is the sort of rose tinted version of that that's very palatable for us. But anyway, the film is sort of a feel good movie, and like any good feel good movie, like It's a Wonderful Life you mentioned, it's got like loads of horrible stuff happens in it, loads of tragedy, loads of sorrow, and really all of the darkest things, not all of the darkest things in the world, but like some of the darkest things in the world have to kind of happen in a feel good movie to properly make it work, unless it's a kid's movie or something like watching Elf or something like that. But even that has got like estranged fatherhood, and like, you know, it's got a certain degree of threat and stuff. I just think it's hard to properly make a feel-good movie without having like a fair old chunk of adversity going on in the film. So yeah, Tampopo, great movie. You didn't mention the director, whether you were interested in exploring more of his work. I've looked him up on IMDb. Tampopo is one of his most highly rated movies, but he does have other films that are very highly rated. And I think that, I could be wrong on this, but I think this is very early in his career, but quite late in his life. I think he made his directorial debut when he was quite old. Maybe I'm getting this wrong, but I've got a feeling he might have been even like around 50, and that this is maybe like his second or third movie, something like that. I mean, I could have all those numbers wrong, but I think because he was a bit of a late bloomer, I'm not sure how prolific he was. Because when I watched this, I was like, oh, let's see what movies he was doing in the 60s. Let's see what, you know, like, I'm presuming this guy's been either he's been knocking around for long before that or long after it. You know, either he was making movies in the 60s or he's making movies in the 2020s. But I think he just has a bit of a shorter window. Again, I might be wrong. Maybe I'm just looking at the films that are most highly rated. But if he's come out with this, then yeah, be curious to see what else she's done.
Hey man, great hearing your thoughts again. I'm in the park now before I go out for a pastry. I know you said that it's quite windy in my last message, so I've hopefully rectified that problem. I've had my own Christmas miracle this morning in many ways before December even begins. I thought I had zero in my account, it being payday tomorrow, and I woke up and £11 has been transferred back in because I got overcharged somewhere. So living like a king on a Sunday instead of a pauper. So yeah, with this director, I know exactly where to start next because I already have one of his movies and didn't know it was by him. And that is the movie The Funeral. Which maybe is another movie I got from the Criterion Closet YouTube show. I'm not entirely sure, but it just so happens that that one is really highly regarded and came up a lot. So that's definitely going to be on my list. I don't know if I'll do it over the next few weeks or just slot it in for the next Criterion week, which is going to be in February, probably. I don't know, maybe, or maybe not, who knows. But anyway, yeah, with this director, I think, I can't remember actually exactly if this is the tail end or the beginning of his career, because it was cut short, because he jumped from a window and killed himself in 1997, allegedly. Gets a bit crazy when you take into account that he did a parody about the Yakuza in the early 90s. Well, he satirized them anyway. And they attacked him, like cut his face and fucked him up really bad. And years later, after this alleged suicide, a Yakuza gangster said that they actually pushed him from the window because he was doing more work on the Yakuza. Now, criminals take credit for things they do all the time, so who knows? But the fact that he was factually attacked by the Yakuza over a previous film, there might be some truth to it. So yeah, that is why his directorial career got cut shorter than it was, I presume, which is pretty messed up. Yeah, and the other thing is, regarding something that I had sniffed in my first viewing and that has later been confirmed, the scenes with the character and the man in the white suit, he is paying homage to a character from a movie called Death in Venice, right down to the music, and I think the death scene is from that. So just like I was saying with the parody elements, it's amazing when you watch something so much away from the parody and so much away from what the homage is, that it becomes something different. Like we got this with the Simpsons all the time with Sideshow Bob and all these movies that they were parodying. We just thought they were great scenes in itself, but there are almost even better scenes when you know what they're making fun of, but then or referencing. But then the other question is, are they? Because now it doesn't just exist within an original scene within a movie, it exists because of something else. But I think in this instance, because it was a little bit confusing and it was the only vignette character that we really returned to a fair few times, that I would have liked to understand what was going on with that. Whereas the other vignettes are very much in isolation at times. So yeah, I don't know if you found out that, but they're in Venice, which kind of makes me want to watch the movie now. Mind you, the ending is ruined. And yeah, I get what you're saying about the having been to Japan. You have, not me, fortunately. About how that perfectionism and how adhering to regulations and the way it is can have a negative effect. Yeah, I'm aware of all that. I don't watch a gun movie and think of school shootings. I think of, well, those guns are cool and those action sequences are cool. So I take I take what either the film is interested in or what I'm interested in, taking it in a positive way from something, you know. It's not like this is whiplash. But yeah, it is a movie that I wouldn't mind seeing again and again as well. It's got that power, doesn't it? Which is unusual for a comedy. But as you brilliantly said, a lot of the comedy scenes have pathos to it, and it's almost an anthology of themes and ideas as well. So yeah, it's very good.
Hey man, bit windy out here. Hopefully it's not coming through on the recording. Sunday afternoon now. Pissing rain yesterday, but it's gorgeous today. Classic winter flip-flopper weather. Just actually out to get a bike for my daughter from Santa, so it's very hush-hush operation. Yeah, interesting hearing that information about the Yakuza situation and the theories about the director's death. It's extra tragic that his career was cut short, given that it was always going to be short because of his age when he started making movies. So if he died in 1997, I can't imagine there's too many films. And maybe I'm completely making this up, but I had it in my mind, I had it in my head that Tampopo was maybe his second or third movie. So if that's the case, then he sort of hits the ground running with very significant work. So maybe this guy has only made like pretty essential movies, at least if you're a fan of Tampopo. So yeah, definitely something for me to go in and investigate a bit more. This is inevitably going to be a very short conversation between us because there isn't really anything that we disagree about with this movie. Often we'll watch a movie and we'll agree on like 85-90% of what could be thought and said about the film, but then we can talk endlessly about that final 10% and how we very passionately differ from one another. But in this one, I think we're in complete symmetry. Correct me if I'm wrong. Interesting to hear about the death in Venice stuff. No, obviously not something I was aware of, but definitely a movie I've heard about a lot. So I'm curious to fill in the blanks there and maybe go back and watch that one. That could be another Criterion week movie for you. I've heard it referenced so many times, but don't really know what it is, other than maybe if I just assume that it's a Italian neorealist movie, but of course that could be wrong. But yeah, certainly stands on its own 2 feet anyway as a recurring subplot or whatever you want to call it. So yeah, great movie. had a great time with it. I think you did as well. So, not expecting anything on this level from this director because it's just so good, but would definitely be worth hitting more. And you said that you're ahead of The Funeral, so I wonder where Tampopo is the ultimate ode to food, if The Funeral is the ultimate ode to death or funerals on screen. Perhaps we'll catch it in the next Criterion week.
Your mailbox is full. Please delete new or stored messages which you no longer need so that new messages may be received.